Hi everyone, welcome to Module 4. We're going to be looking at resources for the diverse classroom. We'll be looking at inclusion and inclusivity. And I'm happy to say, tentatively happy and optimistic, that after years of struggle about the politics and practice of inclusion, it seems that the time has arrived that we're starting to understand that inclusion, diverse classrooms are here to stay. And the recent Students First report released by the Nova Scotia government finally recognizes that inclusion, as it was originally implemented, was a failure and actually causing great harm to both students and teachers. And I don't think I exaggerate when I say that. Most of the teachers that I've spoken to, worked with over the years, have voiced time and time again their deep and abiding frustration with the way inclusion was organized and implemented in this province. And I'm sure that this province is not alone in struggling with meeting the needs of an increasingly diverse student body. So we're beginning to understand that inclusion is not about disability. It's not only about schools. Inclusion is about creating a society in which all children and their families feel welcomed and valued. In truly inclusive classrooms, teachers acknowledge the many ways in which students differ from one another in their socioeconomic class, gender, ethnic background, family background, sexual orientation, language, cognitive abilities, their size, their religion, and the list goes on and on. So this diversity is valued, and teachers are supported to design and implement productive and sensitive responses to those differences. So let's just flip ahead just a couple of slides by way of introduction of the kinds of things we'll be looking at in this module. So we know that classrooms today are filled with diverse learners who differ not only culturally, but also in their cognitive abilities and their learning styles. And the job of the classroom teacher is more demanding now than any time in the past, as educators find ways to meet the needs of these diverse learners. And it all begins, I guess, in a very simple way that as education was originally conceived, teachers teach classes. Teachers teach groups. These groups are composed of individual children. And in the last 30 years or so, especially since 1982, with the enshrining of human rights into the Canadian Constitution, we know that each child, each person has inalienable rights, and society has moved to ensure these rights are met and that they are valued. So education has really shifted historically along those lines as society shifts. And we still find today, many years, decades after this distinction was made, that inclusion and inclusionary, inclusive classrooms really makes the tension between class and individual readily apparent. And we still have a long way to go before we bridge that difference. And hopefully with the publication of this most recent report, we are on the road to finally smoothing over and making those connections and links more apparent. So many schools are implementing differentiated instruction in an effort to effectively address all students' learning needs, ensuring that teachers feel confident in their skills and the requisite knowledge to effectively deal with and manage the diverse classroom It's a huge challenge for school districts and administrators. Providing classroom teachers with the support and the resources to effectively teach students of differing abilities in the same class in a way that maximizes each student's growth and individual success will be a priority for schools, jurisdictions over the next decade and beyond. So we're looking at academic needs, social emotional needs. We're looking at behavioral needs becoming a large area, the range and reasons, the cultural, societal reasons for the complexity of children's needs has really increased in the last three decades. That's not just anecdotal evidence, although teachers will tell you classrooms have changed dramatically. And there's a whole range of reasons why inclusion has stumbled, and these creating these learning environments. A lack of resources really gets in the way of creating the learning environments that we need. A lack of a clear vision for what we mean by inclusivity, and a lack of teacher training. If there's one common theme that I've heard is that teachers feel that they have not had adequate preparation and professional development to deal with the myriad and complex needs that children have. So with last month's publication of Students First, it's a long overdue, and we watch very closely to how these changes are implemented in schools in this province in Nova Scotia. So in this module, we'll be looking at that shift, the shift to a culture of inclusion in Canadian schools, and the resulting adjusting of teaching and learning strategies required to meet the needs of children in very culturally and linguistically diverse mixed ability classrooms. In an article by the writer Tracy Hubner, published in 2010, and I've got it included in our list of resources. It's entitled Differentiated Instruction. And I'd just like to quote what the author says. For all its promise, effective differentiation is complex to use and thus difficult to promote in schools. Moving toward differentiation is a long-term change process. And some would argue that we have been moving towards differentiation and inclusion for a long time, and it's time for us to get along with the job at hand. So I think that building on what we know, building on where we see our challenges and where the obstacles lay, I think we have a good sense of what needs to happen, and with the adequate supports that have been promised, it is a time of great hope. I think if the government is able to make good on that report and put the necessary resources in place. But anyway, I look forward to engaging in some discussion and hearing your thoughts. The report will be a part of what we'll be looking at in the module, and getting some sense of people's ideas and reactions around what the report contains. So I think it's best to begin by seeking out the wisdom of other educators who have experience with differentiated instruction. We ground our own practice in theory and reflection, as we've learned in previous modules, and learn in a way that's meaningful to us, and try to find our way through what is a very complex and long-term change in schools and in classrooms. So I think that's a realistic and measured observation, and it will guide our discussions going forward. Good. Okay. Um, we'll move through our activities in the module, and I look forward to the discussion and interacting with you on this all too important and often very contentious topic of inclusion. Okay.